Week 13 presentation. So this week I focused a lot of my research on what is the role of school in society, and one of the things I really noticed is that we need change, but how we go about that change is a little tricky. This weekend I went and saw this speaker. Her name is Azar Nafisi, and she said that if you're going to have change, you need something to replace it. You want to get rid of something, you need to make sure that there's something to replace it, and we don't quite have that idea set yet. So one thing I noticed in this is that often we say what we want, what we think would be better, but we don't always recognize whether or not it's good. President Lyndon B. Johnson really advocated for furthering education because he said that that education will help eliminate poverty, and that is true. The more educated you are, the more able you are to help yourself. And he wanted to help provide the scholarships and opportunities, but again, how do you go about that is the question. And another one I noticed, how do we recognize whether or not it's a good change or a bad change? What can seem bad could actually be good. I think about integration in the Brown versus Board discussion. A lot of society thought it would be a bad thing to have these two people, two different races and societies come together, but actually it's a very good thing. It was good for the students, it was good for the integrated students to interact with each other, and now we think nothing of it really, but it was viewed almost scandalous at the time. But how do we recognize what's a good change and what's a bad change? I don't like how often we compare our culture and society, our education system, with China or Korea. It's not a good comparison. We need to compare like cultures together to see how we can bring about a better change. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. American culture is so very different than a lot of things we are comparing ourselves to. I think that in ghetto schooling, Jean Enion, she had the right idea. We need to compare our schools, some of our less productive schools, with some of our better schools. We can't keep pushing the better schools to be better and leave the bad schools behind. We really, really need to compare like with like. We need to compare American schools with American schools, and maybe even just English-speaking schools of similar cultures. That way we can get what's best for our culture, our society. A lot of times we forget that the world is a big place with a lot of very diverse cultures, and our society has a very different approach to education than other cultures, so it's a very tricky topic that really has some tricky answers that can't just be we can't get rid of what we have without having something to replace it. And that's my presentation.